We are joined by the great Bret Bielema, head coach of the Illinois Fighting Illini, who had some criticism of our way too early top 10 because we left his team off. Asked if we were still feeling New Year's Eve. Well, Bret, our way too early top 25 has come out. Now, in our defense, we did not know about all those guys that were coming back. They had not made their decisions yet. So now that we know about Gabe Jacobs and Luke Altmaier had already made his decision, but about that group that's coming back, we got you at number 7. We feel better about that?
I do feel better about that, but I was just trying to give information. I wasn't criticizing. And honestly, it's kind of interesting. We had one of our local writers write a story on portal rankings and all this stuff, and I found it interesting. One of the things that we've been able to do is retain our best players. Andy, I think you hit a great point. So, Luke Altmaier was coming back, and obviously a very talented player in his own right, but we didn't know about Gabe Jacobs. We didn't know about Xavier Scott, and then the real trip really was our left tackle, J.C. Davis, who we took really as a one-year wonder. We knew he was a guy that only had 1 year of eligibility, and then when this new JUCO rule came through that gave everybody a bonus year, I flew out the night before Christmas and met with him and his family and got him to agree to come back. So that's our 5 top players all decided to come back, and I don't think a lot of people in college football have that, and I think that was a big key factor. Plus 18 of 22 came back on our current roster, which was big. And that – so thank you, Diego Pavia. But yeah, that was kind of the one that put it over the top for me was you're getting your left tackle back when you didn't think you would. And, what does it mean to know that you've got that spot secured? It was interesting. So I came to work 2 springs ago and I had this email from the NFLPA and I basically was invited to be a part of Joe Thomas's induction to the Hall of Fame, the announcement and all that goes into it. And at that point, it really made a big moment on me, just like he was my first player ever drafted in the first round. Joe Thomas was a left tackle, got the 4th pick to the Cleveland Browns, won the Outland Trophy. His backup, Gabe Karimi, then started 4 years for me at left tackle, won the Outland Trophy, got drafted first round to Chicago Bears, and we're able to just kind of put together a string of left tackles when I was at Wisconsin. Then, it came full circle when I went to Arkansas and recruited and developed a young man by the name of Frank Ragnow, who's a starting center for the Detroit Lions, is the highest paid center in NFL history. So it's really put a premium on those offensive line. Next year, we have all 5 offensive linemen returning for us on a 10-win football team. That probably is number one reason I get excited, who protects a really good quarterback.
I might have missed the moment here, Bret, because Andy did all the talking at the beginning. Sorry. But you did wonder if the after effects of New Year's Eve were still hitting us on January 5th. I was just wondering, you ever had any benders that lasted 5 days later or what?
I wouldn't say 5, but I was trying to find a creative way to be in the New Year's spirit. I didn't figure you guys did it.
I've gotten into multiple days before, so it's not that far fetched.
I mean, it could have been a crazy New Year's, but all kidding aside, Bret, when you look at the way that this sport is now set up, and the fact that teams that people may just dismiss based on logos have made better runs. When you look at the roster that you bring back and that it was already very competitive or very good in the Big Ten, where was this in your mind in terms of where you would be in your Illinois build? And are you kind of ahead of schedule in your own head?
What was, fun for me, Ari, over the last, 4 years of being here is just take all the experiences I had at Wisconsin, all the experiences at Arkansas, spent 2 years in the league with the Patriots and Giants. And I've, blown a lot of things that have blended into where we are today. College football has never mirrored NFL football as much as it does right now. We have a 74-man travel roster. The NFL has a 53-man NFL roster that actually becomes, I believe 47 on game day. So there's a lot of things that have, accustomed to that, but also just the salary numbers now, right? So 2 years ago, I was at $2 million. Last year, we went to $5 million. We finished 5th in the Big Ten. I know the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten were north of 20 million. So to get in the spot where that now we're all going to be a little bit more equal, somewhere in that 15 million range, I think everybody's going to become accustomed to. And for me in my career, for the first time in college football, it's kind of fun to be on the same playing field or feel that you have a chance to be there. There's still some things are in play. Some people are getting some crazy NIL deals here the first 6 months of the year that have kind of created a little imbalance. But I think college football is, and that's why I think you're going to see a lot of college coaches going to the NFL. You're going to see NFL coaches come to college, as we're already starting to see. it's unprecedented what can happen on a roster right now. I just met this morning at 8:00 with my incoming players, the 24 new guys in the building, 12 transfers, 12 high school guys, and to have those guys currently built into our current roster. And we may have a couple more come and go, this spring, but I think for the most part, we're building our roster next year, and it's a really exciting time.
Well, and this is one, I think people assume that every roster is just going to wholesale change out, but you just talked about how many returning starters you have, how many guys you retain. Now, you are bringing in people in key spots like Hudson Clement from West Virginia. He was their leading receiver. He's coming in. That's a spot you guys needed to, because you had older receivers who were leaving. But I mean, it feels like that's how you're going to build. And you've got your window, just like in the NFL. In the NFL, it's when you have the quarterback on the rookie contract. I guess now it's when you have that older left tackle, when you have an older quarterback.
Andy, you're spot on. And then what people don't realize is I still say that we are a development type program. I believe in that. I love it. Right. So in our bowl game, you saw guys like Malik Elzy, Kapka Jones, Hank Beatty made a ridiculous catch. Those three receivers in conjunction with Clement, who we got coming in. Right. And then we added another J-Bo is another transfer wide receiver. So it's the guys we've retained and developed and built, has some more experienced players coming in. And then I think the part that everybody's missing out on is all the auxiliary pieces. I think that's why I'm so grateful for my NFL times is, now how important that punter, the kicker, the long snapper, the backup quarterback, your depth in the running back.
You got a punter. That's right. You got a punter
from Australia. Stole him from Purdue, right? Like I know how important it was for us to have that. We had a guy that had been there but hadn't been really consistent as they wanted. David Alano, our returning field goal kicker, is the best in my opinion, one of the best in the country. Ethan Wachowski, Chowman, is our kickoff guy. Our backup quarterback. We took the quarterback from Northern Illinois who beat Notre Dame, who's playing tonight in a national championship game. So it's just, I think the acquisition of some assets around your current roster that you've built, and then I'm telling you, we retained our 5 best players, and that does not happen very often, especially guys had different options, right? We had teams contact our guys who were willing to pay our guys double the money to go to other places, and they just turned it down. They know what we're building here and what they can be valued at the end. And that's the part that I think is a fun and exciting time for our players.
That's pretty interesting. I always like this part of the year too, when, you start hearing everything and now you're talking me into number 3.
I think we're just going to be where we're at.
Well, the question
go ahead.
I was going to ask him, Andy, though, is that so I think the number one comparison that you're going to get, whether you like it or not, throughout the offseason is this next year's Indiana.
Right.
The team that, people just didn't see coming because they're not paying attention. And then the next thing you know, they're 10-0 and in the middle of the thing. And I'm wondering, Bret, from your standpoint in coaching and how you've been around the block and have had very successful teams in the past, do you want people to come in to the year expecting Illinois to be really, really good? Or would you rather kind of arrive out of the blue and have under the radar games that people aren't hyping up, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're 7-0?
I think the toughest opponent on our schedule next year is the University of Illinois. I think how we handle things of the past and prepare ourselves for the future has got to be the things we're most safeguarded against. We got 12 teams. All of them can be teams that we can win, and all of them can be teams that we can lose to. But I think the key is to have an understanding of who you are, where you are, and what you're understanding or what you're planning to do. I always say here at Illinois, we need a chip not only on one shoulder, but on both shoulders. I don't want to be next year's Indiana, but I don't want to be last year's, Oregon or whatever you want to say, right? I think we are who we are. We just got to embody that on an everyday basis and really just plan to it, build to it, develop to it. I couldn't be more excited about a group of coaches and players, right? Everybody just concentrates on the players. I think I have a group of coaches returning that have impressed me beyond belief. I have a offensive coordinator, Barry Lunny, who has been here now going into his 4th season, an incredibly talented coach who surrounded himself with offensive coaches who are very talented. I have 20 coaches in the building, one of them being Aaron Henry, my defense coordinator. 20 coaches, 9 of those 20 have played for me, right? And so they know and understand what the expectation is and the standards. They've been with me both at Arkansas, Wisconsin, here at Illinois, and now I've actually got a guy that was with me at the Giants and at the Patriots. So to have those guys that have my understanding of where we are and what we're doing. But the big thing is to be on a partnership with our athletic director, Josh Whitman, who played here, played in the NFL for 5 years, knows what we're doing. He's built this thing from scratch with us, and it's just a really fun time here at the University of Illinois to be a part of it.
Best daily fantasy game in America. Download the app right now. Use the code STAPLES when you sign up. Play $5, get $50 instantly. College football season is over, but they've still got college basketball, the NBA, the NHL, the NFL. And right now, there is an almost free square featuring the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, who's playing the NFC Championship game this weekend. If he throws for 1 yard and you have that more than 0.5 passing yard square, then you will win that square. The way Prize Picks works, you play at least 2 squares. The more squares you play, the higher the potential payout. Let's look at Josh Allen as the Bills prepare to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. 230.5 passing yards. Do you think that'll be more or less? 0.5 rushing and receiving TDs. Josh Allen, always a threat to score on the ground. Do you think he'll do it against this Chiefs defense? That is the question. So use the code STAPLES, play $5, get $50 instantly. Have a little fun. Jaden Daniels, get you halfway there. Who else can help you? Download Prize Picks, play 5, get $50 instantly when you sign up with code STAPLES. Makes a huge difference to have an AD who loves football, for sure. But I don't think you're going to sneak up on anybody, Brett, and I'll tell you why. That bowl game was you guys coming off a great season, and now we know that you guys have all these guys coming back. South Carolina coming off a season where they were surprisingly good and have a lot of exciting young players coming back. How intense was that game? And we all saw you and Shane get after it, but how intense was that for a bowl game that, you know, most people probably thought, oh, it's not in the playoff. They're not taking it that seriously. That's about as serious as I saw anybody take a bowl game this year.
Well, I knew it from the opening jump. Anytime you got Big Ten, SEC, just kind of who they are, who we are, it's always going to be that way. You know, I was one of the guys who's been able to see it from both sidelines. Obviously, very successful at Wisconsin, went to Arkansas, went to 3 bowl games in 5 years, knew what that conference was available to do. Obviously, the Big Ten had a lot of success this year in the bowl games against them, both in the playoffs and outside of it. So there's going to be those built-in things. Have tremendous respect for Shane. I thought coming out of it, I agree with a lot of people. You know, to win their last 6 ball games, they were the hottest team coming out of the SEC at the end of the year, and we're on the verge of getting into playoffs. So I knew it, and then I heard what they were saying, the emphasis they were putting on this bowl game. So as the game escalated, it got a little bit hotter and hotter because it was a tight ball game. So huge respect. I had a conversation with Shane last week about just kind of where everything is and reflecting on the past. And you know, was sorry I didn't mean anything directed at him, but it was also I think 2 really good competitive teams that were in the heat of the moment. And a lot of people said going into that game outside of the playoffs, that was the most contested bowl game. And it certainly played out that way, but super excited. Next year, we open up with Western. We have a second game against Duke, who obviously just acquired a quarterback that is very talented, and to see what Manny can do. And that I have tremendous respect for Manny and what he's been able to do in his career. And then have, you know, 2 back-to-back home games. I think one Purdue's in between there, but have 2 home games against USC and Ohio State that are really, really significant. So, yeah, it's a fun game, fun schedule. We got 12 guaranteed games, 7 on the front end, 2 weeks, got a bye, got 2 weeks, then a bye, and then 3, and then hopefully put ourselves in some postseason play, which is the whole goal of our program.
Hey, Brett, I don't want to relitigate the whole Shane Beamer thing with you. I'm sure that's why you want.
We actually bet it would take a few months, but you did it in like a week and a half.
Yeah,
so that's good. You already hashed it out.
The thing that I've been curious about with you is, you know, a few years ago, when Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh left our sport, you know, there seemed to be like a void at times of like big time personalities. And anybody who's followed your career all the way back to Wisconsin has known that you have ruffled some feathers from time to time, but you're also unapologetically yourself and one of the bigger personalities in the sport. Have you thought about, you know, what that could mean for Illinois if you were to step in and become one of those personalities who, I'm not saying getting into spats with people, but just like, you know, just being yourself and making headlines, is that good for Illinois? And do you find an emphasis on like, hey, the more you can be you, the better?
You know, I tell our kids every day, there's 3 things every day when you wake up you should do, right? Try to do things the right way, be respectful of everyone, and be the best you. And I tell them, hey, for me, I only know how to be Bret Bielema. I can't be – I have a brother named Barry and a brother named Bart. I can't be either one of them. I can be me, right? I don't try to be somebody else. I try to be the person I am. When that moment came up during the game, I didn't walk over that intention. I walked over there and did something that crossed my mind when I walked over there, right? There wasn't any pre-planning or any unintended circumstances headed over there. Just trying to be me. I don't know how to be anybody else but me. I think that's why when my wife married me, I'm the only me, right? And these kids, I think sometimes give up opportunities to go other places, maybe with, the idea that you could maybe get a little bit more bank in the bank account, but like they understand what we've done. I was watching a playoff game the other night, Detroit, obviously playing. Who the hell are we playing?
Washington, yeah.
And I was watching, one of my favorite players of all time, Frank Ragnow, playing against one of my other favorite players of all time, Johnny Newton, on a touchdown run where they used a technique, both of them, that we had talked about and taught, right? And to see like 6 or 7 of my former players competing not only against each other offensively, defensively, but literally against each other on a reach block, it's absolutely the most captivating, greatest feeling in the world, right? Now, I felt for Frank Ragnow, Dan Skipper, and Kevin Zeitler, 3 offensive linemen that I coached that were playing against Washington, blocking Johnny. But I saw Quan Martin return a touchdown. I'm watching Quan return a touchdown interception, and I'm saying to myself, I wonder if Johnny's going to find a quarterback, because we always teach him to find a quarterback because they're the last level of defense to stop a touchdown. And sure enough, Johnny is pushing him with his right now. The other guy came over and clobber knocked him, but it was just, it was awesome to see that moment show up in that high level. You're talking NFL playoffs, right? I mean, the highest level of college or of NFL playoff scheduling, and 2 steps away from the Super Bowl. So it's tough for me. I turned 55 a week ago Monday, and I know in my career I'm the best I've ever been, right? And the part that I've really enjoyed is I think now we got a roster coming back that is all junior and senior labeled heavy, and some kids that have an understanding. But again, they're going to have to understand our biggest opponent is going to be ourselves, right? And we got to be able to understand what that means.
I am glad you just brought up Frank Ragnow, because he ties into a story about you and me that I don't think you know yet. So I've been 25 years. You are the only coach who has ever gotten me subpoenaed. I'm sitting at home one day, knock on the door. I open the door. There's a rolled up piece of paper in my door handle. And I pull it open, and it is a subpoena from the University of Arkansas's attorneys. It was that you guys were fighting it out over your buyout. And so I'm not going to make you say anything about it, because I'm sure you had to sign something that said you won't. But I'll tell you what happened. They asked, I had written a story about you when I was at Sports Illustrated. You and I had talked at Oklahoma's Pro Day. You were with the Patriots. Yeah. It was Baker Mayfield, Orlando Brown. And we had talked probably for like 20 minutes about how great Frank Ragnow is. And so they want all these, they're like, we want your notes. We want your, transcript of the interview. And I'm like, you can have the quote they used, and everything else is none of your damn business. But if you'd like to know how good Bret Bielema thinks Frank Ragnow is, I can tell you that, because I know a lot about it right now. So that was, but I will tell you, Bret, I was in Arkansas. I think it was a week after Frank's dad died. And I watched how you and your staff handled that situation. And I always thought, if it were my kid and that happened to me, they'd be in good hands with you guys. Yeah,
he was a special young man that has done special things. I think it's just the beginning. And there's a whole other backstory to that too. Like, Frank, when his father passed, was, not in a good place, but he played right away. We actually played Alabama the next week, and Nick Saban, bless his heart, was unbelievable to Frank after the game. But he didn't really address some feelings and issues until he was drafted in the NFL. So there was a whole time there that, I didn't know if Frank was going to be able to pull it off. And obviously not only has he pulled it off, he's pulled it off to a high level. And he plays right next to Kevin Zeitler, who was a guy I coached, both first-round draft picks. And then Dan Skipper, the guy who catches all the touchdown passes. He was a undrafted free agent. Honest to goodness, I was at the New England Patriots. I'd watched a couple tackles come in that were just awful. And I didn't want to be the coach that was praising his older players. So I went into coach's office, Coach Belichick. I said, hey, I'm just telling you, there's a guy, Dan Skipper, sitting on his couch in Dallas, Texas right now that got cut in the preseason, who can block way better than these cats we keep bringing in and keep cutting. And so Bill watched his film, brought him in. He not only signed him, he stayed with us through the Super Bowl. And now that was in 2018. We're now in 2025, and he's been playing in the NFL ever since. If I hadn't brought him in at that point and brought him to Bill's attention, he probably would have never played the last 7 years in the NFL. So that's the fun part for me. Like, I've done well in life. I got, some great moments My daughters, enjoy a great life with my wife, and we do some really good things. But to see now the players get to these things and see players that, to see Joe Thomas's Hall of Fame induction speech, just that's what moves the needle for me in a way that is just special beyond belief. I always go, Confucius said, choose a job you love, you'll never work your day in a life. I turned 55, I ain't worked yet. It's just an awesome, awesome job.
Well, Bret, you and I have, I don't know if we even realized this before the start, we both have the same goal, which is to get Andy subpoenaed. I'm going to work on mine.
Brett's already succeeded.
Yeah,
So,
Brett's already,
my guess is
my new hero.
I guess there's been a few things that have might been in that ballpark, but not quite there.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I got to figure out what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to get you.
Oh, I'm sure you will get me dragged into court at some point, Ari. Brett, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on. Happy New Year.
Appreciate you
God
being
bless.
here.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, Bret.